So welcome everyone to the potpourri. My name's Randy Atwood. I'll be the host tonight. We have a lot on the agenda, and I thought I would give a talk on the eclipse because this is the last potpourri before the big event. So I thought I'd talk about what to look for, especially if plans to see it, and it'll be their very first eclipse. All right, so there are a few people here. How about second eclipse? Okay, that's good. Because your first total. Yeah, I mean, if you saw 10% partial, then good for you. All right, so just a quick review. Why are there eclipses? The moon blots out the sun. When does the moon get in between us and the sun? Every month at new moon. So you would think there would be a solar eclipse every month, but there is not. Here's a nice, I like this one. It just kind of shows the shadow of the moon on the Earth. The fact that the path it's pretty big, but it's usually you have to go and see one of these things. The rare aspect of this eclipse is it's in our backyard. So we don't see an eclipse every new moon, every month, because the moon's orbit is tilted 5 degrees to the plane of our orbit. And so I kind of like this. It's a busy diagram, but what it shows is that the unfavorable eclipse diagrams, the moon is either above or below the sun at new moon. And it's only when the line of the moon and the Earth and the sun get all straight together, which they call the line of nodes, is when you have an eclipse. That happens twice a year, every 6 months. So there has to be at least 2 solar eclipses a year, 6 months apart, not necessarily total. But again, it's rare that you have a total eclipse in your backyard. So anyone who wants to see one usually has to travel. The big concern with solar eclipses is we don't normally look at the sun unless we're driving west near sunset, or that's usually why when it would happen. But if there is an eclipse, there's a reason to look at the sun, and the bright photosphere can damage your eye. The heat, the ultraviolet, it just doesn't do a good job on your retina. So we use solar filters. They normally give the sun a reddish look. So during partial phases, you use your solar filter. And generally, if you're looking at the sun and it's too bright, your brain is telling you, stop looking at the sun. But when it becomes total, then it's you can't see anything through your dark glasses. And that's the time when you just look directly at the eclipsed sun and the corona and everything. So a nice view of the interior of the sun, the different parts. It's the photosphere, the surface of the sun, that is the bright area where that light does the harm. And then above the photosphere is the chromosphere, where there's a lot of activity, like big prominences and things that we like to see during a total eclipse. A couple pictures from my friend Dr. Ralph Chu, who used to do this for a living, take photographs of damaged eyes. It's pretty rare. I've gone back through newspapers, and it's just usually a teenager just stares at the sun. It wakes up the next day and kind of has a dark spot in the middle of both eyes. And I find you really have to work at it to hurt yourself. It's when you start using optical aid like binoculars that focuses the heat. It's the old magnifying glass starting fires in leaves and stuff like that. That's where it gets dangerous. But everyone's been seeing these glasses, solar glasses. They're everywhere, and they're sold out practically everywhere already a month before the eclipse. Another way to view the eclipse is to project the image. I like using a pair of binoculars. You can use a telescope. You can also use, say, a kitchen colander to project pinhole images. But everyone nowadays have access to solar filters for telescopes. But 20 years ago, they weren't as available, but now they're everywhere. So for this particular eclipse, uh, a lot of us are traveling south to areas where the weather is supposed to be better. But it's passing through a lot of large cities. I think already the hotels are booked in Niagara Falls and they're going for $1,000 or some ridiculous price. And that's generally right across the whole path. A lot of the places are already sold out. But the weather is the concern, of course. April is not a great month. But I don't know. I'm a little optimistic. We're seeing some sunny days. Maybe the mild winter is going to give us a better chance of seeing clear skies. But generally, um, historically, the weather is better the farther south you go down towards Mexico. If you're near home, then you're going to want to either drive south into the US or down to the northern shore of Lake Erie or over towards Kingston to get into the path, because unfortunately we are not in the path. Um, we were going to set up an expedition of kayaks leaving from the Toronto Islands for this eclipse, but it'd be better in summertime, I think. But it's just amazing how close it did, in fact, come. The shadow leaves uh, the land just south of the Ford plant in Oakville and joins up again in Port Hope. But I think it would be an exciting thing to see from the top of the CN Tower, to see that lunar shadow cross the lake, and then moves out into the Maritimes, right through Fredericton. Um, Misses a good chunk of misses Charlottetown, misses most of Nova Scotia, and leaves uh, Canada just off Gander and Buena Vista. All right, so what about this experience? Why do we go and see these things? Um, there's a lot that happens in a very short period of time. As you can see in these photos, the brightness is not linear, or the loss of brightness is not linear. For an hour or so, as the moon passes over the sun, you can look around, you won't see any difference. It's only the last 15, 20 minutes where things begin to get interesting. And I think that's really my favorite part of an eclipse, is when you notice that the light is changing color and the shadows are getting sharper and maybe there's a breeze coming up. It's just, we're definitely going to see something. We've been watching the progression of the moon through filters, of course. But it's at that point when things get kind of interesting. As you get very, very close to totality, the sun, instead of this extended orb of light, is now a slit in the sky, and it's very easy to make pinhole cameras with your fingers and project little crescents on the ground. If there were leaves on trees, you could stand underneath a tree and see millions of little crescents on the ground. Just a few minutes before totality, the shadow of the moon becomes visible. And I think I mentioned at the meeting a couple of weeks ago, this is really the only good picture I've seen of the approaching shadow with sunset colors before totality. This was in the Philippines in 1988. Just a few minutes before, or a minute or so before totality, once you see the approaching shadow, looking on the ground, you see these things called shadow bands, which is the interference of the light coming through the atmosphere, because it's just a slit of light and not a large ball of light or extended source. So at the last 30 seconds, things begin to happen very quickly. The shadow is beginning to overwhelm. And as you can see, I just found this the other day, and I think it's a great chart. It really gives you an idea of how quickly it gets dark and to what extent it gets dark. And so it's really the last 30 seconds or 15 seconds where You essentially are in a box and someone is putting a lid on that box. As the last little bit of photosphere disappears behind the moon, you get what's called the diamond ring effect. So the last little photosphere is the diamond, and now the visible corona is shows the actual ring part. And as the bits of photosphere break up into small beads, those are called Bailey's beads. And totality. Totality lasts 3 to 4 minutes for this eclipse, depending on exactly where you are. If you're near the center line, you'll want to look for the corona, look at the detail in the corona, look at the structure, look for prominences. Can't tell you how many prominences they're going to be because they're always changing. In the sky, Jupiter will be above the eclipse. Venus will be below the eclipse. All along the horizon will be sunset colors. And at this point, naked eye, no filters, binoculars, even if you have a small telescope, take advantage of doing that. As totality begins to end, you know it, because suddenly in the southwest, there's this big wall of light approaching. And when that wall of light reaches the moon, then the diamond ring starts and grows bigger and bigger, and the eclipse is over. Here's a nice view of the sunset colors during an eclipse, some of the prominences. Other things that can happen, reactions of animals. You might notice if you're near a farm, then you may hear roosters crowing, that kind of thing. So here's a video just to give you a sense of what the experience is like.
Yeah. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Watch the light. Yeah. Everybody, look, it's getting dark up there.
There's the approaching shadow.
Shadow's coming. About 1 minute before. Michael, we're just going to get a little bit. We'll get some corona. Corona and prominence is right at second contact. "90 seconds. 90 seconds. Look at that shadow coming. Look how it's getting darker. There's a shadow. You can see the shadow coming. Yes. Everyone, move back so you can see up. Stay back. You can't see anything. You want to look up. Everybody, quiet. 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 Pretty quiet. 1 minute. 1 minute. Mark. 1 minute. Look for shadow bands. There they are. Look, there they are across the ground here. Look. You see them, Ben? They're going. Look, they're just sitting here and you're racing across the ground. You got them, Ben?
Very faint.
Yeah, look at them go. Shadow bands.
All right.
We have shadow bands.
Oh my God.
Look at the sunset colors already. Okay, ready? Remove filters on. Turn off. Oh, ready? Look at them, Betty. Corona, it says. Corona. I got Corona.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow. Oh, look at the prominences. Oh, my. Look at that corona. 1/500. Beautiful. Look at that prominence. Whoa. Oh, Betty, the video looks unreal. Side mounted. 1, 2, 3, 4. No stars, no planet. Look at the sunset colors. Beautiful.
So that's why we go and see them. So if it's your first time and you're thinking about taking photos, I would suggest that you don't. Eclipses don't really look like the photos. They're a lot better if you just see them with your eye. And there will be other eclipses that you can photograph. I would suggest that you set up a some sort of video camera or DSLR video camera on a tripod just to capture and frame it where you and all your friends are watching the eclipse. Capture the light levels, capture all the dumb things that you say. And it just, you can relive the experience because a lot happens in a short period of time. If you're in Mississauga and just outside of the path, I've been trying to figure out what 99.8% totality is going to look like. And I kind of think it's going to look like this. I'm not sure that you're going to be able to see corona, just because when you take a picture, it sort of knocks down the dazzling aspect a little bit. I'm not sure, but for sure it's going to be a light show. Because it's quite possible that the diamond ring might just start on one side and just move to the other side as the shadow passes by. So it's going to get dark anyway, no matter what. And finally, if it's cloudy, it's still an amazing sight. My first eclipse was cloudy, and I'll never forget it because you notice the speed of the lunar shadow much better because the clouds sort of act like a translucent display, and you can actually see the line of the shadow moving by. And that's at 2,500 kilometers an hour. So it's pretty impressive. And if you're thinking about the next one, here's the next one in 2026 through Iceland and Portugal, Spain. And that is my presentation. Any quick questions? John?
Kind of answered the question already, but from Mississauga or other places just outside of that, 99.8. So I think those are actually seating.
I would doubt it. I think it's just going to be a very bright diamond ring. But the question is, it's only a diamond ring if you can see the corona. And I think it'll be dazzled. For the diamond necklace eclipse in '84, that was such that the moon just sort of was superimposed on the sun, but not just a little bit smaller, so that there were little Bailey's beads all around the sun. And people who just observed that with their eye, it was just too dazzling. But through a camera on the where you expose it, you're looking through the camera and everything, I saw corona, I saw prominences, because it was just, I think, going through that process, it affected the way it looked. It just knocked down the dazzling aspect a little bit. I think for the few seconds when at maximum eclipse, I think you're safe to take a look. And I think your brain, once it gets bright again and too dazzling, then you will look away and you'll get your glasses back on. But I mean, it's the kind of thing where I've never seen one like this before, so I can't really say, but a 99.8% eclipse, for you to look at it with your naked eye for 10, 15 seconds, it's not going to be harmful because you can do that with the regular sun. The only concern I have with nearby events is I have no idea how busy the QEW is going to be, but I have a funny feeling it's going to be a parking lot. I would not be surprised if the OPP close it at some point. But then you can get down to Oakville by just going down to Lakeshore and scooting across Lakeshore. But just be aware. I mean, we contacted the various emergency divisions for the different regions a year and a half ago. And Niagara did a great job in putting together a document which went all through that. And then they just distributed that document to all the other regions. So I think the OPP is aware of the day. And I know in Ohio and New York, they're having first responders at different places all along the highway because, you know, if you can't move on the highway, then yeah. So it's what they saw in 2017. And the data point that really gets me is that they determined that all of the cities and towns along the path in 2017, their population went up 50% on eclipse day. So once you introduce that number of cars, people, whatever, it just overflows everything. Yeah, it's like the way they used to, the old refractors, you'd get a little solar filter and you'd screw it into your eyepiece. And yeah, I know someone who was looking through it one day and went, boy, that's awful bright. And the glass had cracked. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, you hate to say, okay, yes, you can do this or you can't do this. And just if you're in a total eclipse, you use binoculars, otherwise don't. I mean, but it's anyway, yeah, this is a long discussion. Yeah, Chris?